Katarn has been one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time for one of my favorite video games of all time. He's a beloved character of mine that I really hope to see Disney bring back at some point, so when DamienSaber reached out to review their brand new Katarn saber, I had to take him up on it. So enjoy the review. Alrighty guys, so we actually do have a package here from DamienSaber, and we're going to go ahead and get it open here. I'm trying not to show a whole lot of the box. It's a pretty simple box, but it does have my shipping information pasted all over it, so we're going to try to avoid looking at that too much. Let's go ahead and get this thing open. It is covered in tape, so got a lot of tape to actually cut here. But first up, we do have the blade. Now this is a Xenopixel blade, as you can see here with the connector on the end. Hopefully I can get it to focus. As you can see, Xenopixel. And the lightsaber blade itself is super heavy, and it's actually Katarn's saber. This is a big, beefy saber. Holy crap. But that's awesome. Of course, in the box, do have a charger for it, a little blade plug, I believe. I think that goes on the blade plug as well. This is, I'm not quite sure what this is, some USB chip. So I'll read the directions and let you know what this is. I'm guessing maybe this is so I could install different fonts and stuff on it. I'm not too sure though. We also have some different screws and an Allen wrench to secure the blade onto it. Another fancy Allen wrench here. And a stand, I believe, is what this is too. But yeah, this saber is beautiful. Let's go ahead and get it open. It is very heavy. Very, very heavy. Oof. The last saber DamienSaber sent to me was definitely a lighter dueling saber. This one is much more of a prop replica to Katarn's saber, and it is beautiful. Crap, you can't see down there. It's a little dark, but that's where the blade connects. Nice big red buttons here. Super cool. Even nice flat design here on the bottom. Let's see about getting the blade in this thing. Okay, so I did figure out if you take it apart down the middle, you can slide this middle piece out. And for starters, you have to click the on switch to on here. But here's the battery and the charging port. And so that's how you figure out if it is charged or not. If you need to charge it, you do have to take this whole thing out to charge it. So now that we actually have turned it on, we'll see if it has any battery in it. So we'll see and hold this and see if it... There we go. So it does have battery in it. Let's try igniting it. There we go. This is very bright, even under my studio lights. It does have smooth swing, of course. Let's see what happens when I click the button. There we go. I love the LEDs going down the blade. So let me go ahead and mess around with it, find out some saber fonts, and I'll see which one I like best. So I do want to start off talking about some of the basic features of the saber. So of course this is actually a Xenopixel saber, so it is a blade-lit saber. All the LEDs are in the blade rather than being in the hilt, so it's not base-lit like a flashlight. A base-lit saber is going to have all the LEDs right here in the pommel, and it's going to shine up the blade like a flashlight. And this isn't the case because all the actual LEDs and lights are in your saber, so it's going to allow for a ton more customization, a ton more lightsaber features that you're not going to get from a base-lit saber. But the great thing about this being a blade-lit saber is the fact that it's going to be so much brighter, because with a base-lit saber, it's going to have to shine through the full length of the blade. It being blade-lit means that it's going to stay that whole bright color throughout the whole blade, which I think is really great. Now this saber does have kind of like the flick of the wrist on and off, so you just flick your wrist and it turns on, which is great, so you're not always having to press the button to turn it on. And so really all I have to do is this to turn it on, which is great. Now while I have it on, it does have smooth swing, which I will kind of put up towards the mic here so you can hear. A lot of the Disney and Hasbro sabers aren't going to have smooth swing, and so when you swing it, it has a sensor that basically just plays a pre-recorded sound clip, and it doesn't actually go with the swing of the saber. But a saber like this with smooth swing is actually going to make the swinging noises with the swing of your blade, which is something that I absolutely love, and it's one of my favorite parts of a saber like this. Now, of course, it does have flash on clash. And it also has a blaster mode where you kind of press the button on the saber. And it's like you're getting kind of shot with the blaster. Now, everything can be customized by pretty much different clicks of the button. If you hold it for half a second, it'll change this. If you hold it for a full second, it'll change this. But there's actually a connected app that you can use, and that pretty much can control everything from the saber, even to the ignition. You can turn it on from your phone, which I think is super cool. But I specifically love the fact that you can change the color using a color wheel off your phone. For example, my lightsaber's on here, and I think the blue here is a little bit too light for Katarn. And so really all I have to do is click on the wheel here, the color I want, and it'll automatically change to it. So if I want it a purple, or I want it more of a bluer color, even all the way up to green or yellow, it'll do it. You just kind of click on the wheel where you want it to go. Bright pink there, that looks really cool. And obviously my phone is kind of in the way, covering up the color. That's a beautiful orange color, but really you have the whole color wheel here to choose from. And for Katarn, I like more of a deep blue, and I think that works perfectly. And of course, like I said earlier, you can control the ignition from the app. You just hit the Kyber crystal, and it turns on and off, which I think is cool. But I also like here all the different fonts you can choose from, which is essentially the sound as well as the color, the effects, all of that. They have pre-selected fonts you can choose from. And so there are 34 different here.
Moonfield.
This one is Moonfield, so if I turn that on, this one is a complete rainbow. Looks super cool. It sounds like a Rainbow Road. Let's hear this. But like I said, there are 34 different fonts here you can choose from, and I believe you can also upload your own font and make your own custom light effects and fonts if you do want to. But here are just a few of my favorite fonts that I've really liked. I'm not going to go through all 34, but there are a ton that I think are really awesome. This one's called the Senate, and it is pretty much exactly Darth Sidious's font and color. I think it looks amazing. This one's called Codex of Light. Super cool effect. Sounds pretty dang cool. This one is called Dark Ages, and it sounds like a katana. It's like super cool. Let's turn it on. It's got like a shing effect. And even the swinging has that too. And of course when I turn it off, it has that same sound. Pretty dang cool. This one is called Hatred, and it's got this super cool, like, deep humming noise, and it's almost like a full orchestra is playing as the humming noise. I absolutely love this. Let's turn it on. Super cool noise. Okay, so now that we've gone through a few of my favorite fonts, we are going to go through the ignition effects and the blade effects, because there are quite a few for each. First up is called Fireblade, which kind of has this pulsating up and down effect. Next up is called Steady, which is basically your standard blade. Pretty typical. Next up is called Unsteady, and it's this kind of crackly flashing effect. The next one is called a Rainbow Blade. I'm pretty sure you can guess what that is. It makes your blade rainbow, and I think this one is really cool. There's also Candy Blade, which is kind of a blue, pink, and yellow effect. Also looks really cool in my opinion. Next up is Cracked Blade, which kind of has this here and there crackly effect. Next up is Pulse. This one has like a kind of brighter to dim pulsating effect. Last up is called Flash Blade, and this one just flickers. Next up, we're going to look at the ignition modes. So first up is Standard. Again, your typical lightsaber ignition. Pretty typical. 2 is called Broken Ignition. That one is pretty cool looking. Here is Photon Ignition. Next up is Stack Ignition. That one's cool looking. Next up is Warp Ignition. Ooh, it was hard to see on camera, but it actually started at the tip of the blade as well as that side, and it met in the middle. Quite an interesting ignition. I don't think I've ever seen something like that before. Next up is phaser ignition. That's pretty cool. Next up is scavenger ignition. And that one flashes between green and blue when it's turning on, so I'm guessing this is for like a ray lightsaber because it has that like blue-green ignition before it turns yellow, and so I'm guessing that's what this one is for. And then the last one is hunter ignition. That one's also a pretty interesting ignition. Now, of course, in the app you can control something like the volume, so if you want it to be quiet, you can turn it all the way down. So if this is something you want to hang on the wall, you can turn off the volume so it doesn't make any noise. I think that's super cool. And you can also control the brightness of the blade. So if it's too bright for you, you can turn it down, or you can turn it even farther down, depending on how bright you want it. I think that's cool as well, especially if you're hanging it on a wall and you want it as some kind of ambient lighting. I think that's great for that. So I've had the saber for a few weeks now and a few weeks to play around with it, and I gotta say, I'm really loving this saber. As far as prop replica goes, this thing is really dang good. The amount of detail and accuracy that actually went into this hilt is kind of crazy considering the fact that it's actually based off of an early 2000s, low poly, pretty crappy video game asset, and so the amount of actual detail that went into this is really cool, and it's actually just really nice to see this thing in person in a physical form rather than in a video game. And I gotta say, in the video game, it's a very large saber, and that definitely translates over to the prop replica. It's a very, very big saber, and it's also very heavy. I did bring it outside and do a little bit of a swing test, and I gotta say, it's heavy, it's hard to swing around, it's awkward. It's definitely not something you're gonna want for dueling. If you want a lightsaber for dueling, definitely check out some of the baselit sabers, but something like this, it's gonna be strictly a prop replica. It looks fun to swing around, but it's definitely more of an artisanal piece, and I think it's great for that. I swung it around for probably about 2 minutes, and my arms and wrists just really hurt after that because of how dang heavy the thing is. It's a really great, heavy, sturdy prop replica, but it's not great for swinging and dueling. But if you're as big of a Kyle Katarn fan as me, this is something that you're gonna love, I can guarantee it. It's very accurate to the games, it's heavy, it's sturdy, and it's gonna look great on a shelf or a wall. Looking for a good Kyle Katarn saber, this one has got to be the best one out on the market right now, so make sure to go check out DamienSaber, that will be linked in the description, but that is gonna do it for my review, so if you did enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.